Hello there, and welcome to 3Spoonies. We're your hosts, Karen, Jo, and Claire. This is episode number 57, and we're discussing cooking while disabled. Join us while we dive in.
If money advice has ever made someone feel lazy, chaotic, or like they've somehow failed at adulthood, Maddie Alexander Grout wants people to know they are definitely not alone. Maddie is a visibility coach for hidden disability entrepreneurs, ADHD advocate, speaker and best-selling author, and she wrote Mad About Money because she was tired of seeing neurodivergent people judged for struggling with money. This isn't a finance book full of complicated jargon and unrealistic routines. It's honest, relatable, and designed for people whose brains don't work in neat little spreadsheets. Inside, Maddie talks openly about ADHD, impulse spending, debt, overwhelm, burnout, dopamine chasing, and creating systems that work in real life, not just on paper. The book combines practical money support with personal stories, humour, and reassurance for anyone who has ever felt bad with money. Mad About Money is available now.
Hello, I'm Karen from Pony Pony Pony.
And I'm Jo from Bright Cat Business Solutions.
Claire from Strange Little Obsessions.
And together, we're 3Spoonies working our way through life and business with not enough spoons. We have a special guest star today. This is Tiny Chef, or Cheffy. He'd just like to say hello.
It still scares me.
He's going to be giving us advice on cooking because he is an expert. And look at his gloves. Look at them.
Okay, gloves are cute, but he scares me.
Cheffy is
I watched a
nice.
couple of the YouTubes last night and I was like, what am I watching?
Did you see his audition for Star Wars?
Yes, that was cool.
We're very glad to have Cheffy with us.
And our topic for today is?
Cooking and that is what we are doing today, which is why I'm wearing a bear with cakes on.
I like cake. Cake's good.
Cake's good.
I don't enjoy making cake anymore, though. I used to.
I do in some ways, but we'll discuss that when we come to our dessert section. I don't know if that's how we're doing it. Probably not, to be fair.
Just give us all the cake.
You know whether people have dessert first or just dessert. Anyway, yeah, we're talking about cooking when you're disabled today, and because it's a nightmare, or it can be, depending on what your limitations are. Where would you ladies like to start? Would you like to go through the menu? Or should we just go with what are the big issues?
Big issues, I think.
Big issues is just having the energy to cook in the first place.
It's a thing.
Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to cook this for dinner, or eat something like, even doing like a bolognese, it's quite in depth because I put lots of stuff in it. But then it's like,
Really? Terrible.
it's like, so mine has, you get my recipe now. Mine's got like garlic, onion, bacon, carrots, celery, mushrooms, tin tomatoes, passata, milk, red wine, all of that. It's proper, that's an old Italian recipe that I've got. But even like just lifting the pan when you've got to do like the spaghetti to drain it, things like that, it's just, sometimes I'm like, I have to be like, can someone else lift it? Because I will probably drop it and burn myself. But just the energy to stand there is too much. I just don't have it. And the mental capacity to even want to do it sometimes is not there.
Yeah, I find I can't do things all in one go. Like my other half would rather do something on the hob quickly, whereas I'd much rather chuck something in the oven and wait until it beeps at me so I know it's done, sort of thing. It's yeah, I couldn't, like, for Christmas, like making Christmas dinner, there was no way I was going to do that on the day. So for like a month in advance, I was kind of prepping and freezing stuff. So like I chopped potatoes and parboiled them and thymed and rosemary them and then froze them and got all the bits and bobs ready. So on the day, I just had to take stuff out and make it warm because otherwise it's a lot, and I wrote on the bags as well, sort of how long they take and what temperature, because I didn't trust myself to be able to remember everything. And, it's just like I have to make things easy for myself, or I pre-prep a lot of stuff for the slow cooker, and I'll sort of write in it, add tin tomatoes or add a litre of stock or whatever and cook for 8 minutes on low. So then I can just kind of chuck it in and sort of leave it to do its thing, really. Yeah, if you are using slow cookers, you can get the really cheap timer switches, to use to switch lights on when you're away and stuff. So, because I freeze everything, it can sort of defrost a bit and then turn on later if I have capacity now, but 3 hours from now when I need to put it on, I don't know if I'm going to be functional. It's like, okay, do it now. It's not going to get up to a temperature where it's going to be a problem. And because I'm veggie, a lot of it's veg anyway, so it's not high protein or whatever until I add that stuff later. So yeah, I have to do it in stages. The thought of, going out, buying some stuff, bringing it back, prepping it, cooking it all in one go is like,
You're not into it at that point. Yeah, my problem is a lot of the time is standing long enough, because I sometimes struggle to stand to boil a kettle. But on top of that, I am not safe with a knife because of hand spasms. I am very much in danger to cut myself. We do, because we eat the same things every week. I have on occasion tried to get sausages with some cheese on top from the oven using a bench scraper and a knife to my bread. It's not far, and it has ended up on the floor. At one point, we got a substitution on our sausages, and they were really thick. So Ben said, "I'll cook them. I'll cut them in half, and then I'll finish them off in the pan." And when he says, "Right, come get your sandwich," he was like, "Actually, do you want me to get out here?" Because he didn't trust me with the pan, the hot oil, or the food, and not dropping it.
Yeah, I find the same. It's like when I had my PIP assessment that decided it was perfectly safe for me to cook, I had like burns down my arm, and I'd managed to slip with a knife and it went sort of right into my thumbnail. So yeah, I get that. I had to switch to using the air fryer rather than the oven because it's up on the counter, so I don't have to bend down. Because I'm not always the most flexible anyway, and sometimes I'll have dizzy spells when I bend down. You know that thing when you open the oven and your glasses steam up, and it's a whole kerfuffle. So I've been using the air fryer a lot, and I got hold of some, you can get these silicone inserts to put in it, which I thought was weird because it's like, well, won't that stop the air circulating? But still seems to work. And it came with like a silicone oven glove. It looks like a Muppet mouth.
My mum uses those. She likes to wander around going, "Bup, bup, 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 bup." But there's so much
It's
cutting at them.
great because it stops me accidentally burning myself on the side when I'm trying to sort of fish stuff out.
She
If I
uses
can
it
just
with her
grab
oven,
the basket and pull it
and
out.
it seems, well, you've got more dexterity to start with, and you're not attached to the other hand like you are with oven gloves.
Yeah, it just seems a good solution that saved me, as I said, burning like my arm where I'm maybe not entirely aware of where it is. And obviously the sides are hot and they're hot, but it's still like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, thankfully our oven is integrated, so it is actually sort of fairly level. But that doesn't mean I can transfer something from one place to another.
mm,
Do you guys find sometimes as well, like I'll be cooking something and I can kind of lose focus on what I'm doing. So I can take something off the hob or I go to pick it up knowing it and it's like, it's hot, why am I touching it? Or I go to actually pick it up, but it's not there, but the hob is still on. I almost touch the gas ring and I'm like, what am I doing?
yeah, that's another reason for me for using the air fryer. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. Because with the air fryer or with the model I've got, I'm not sure if it's the same with all of them, but you have to put a time on it. So you can't forget it because I'm terrible for turning the oven on and not setting the timer and then waiting for the timer to go and go, oh, it feels like.
I do that all the time. Ricky's like, why can't you just put the timer on your phone? I'm like, I will when I walk back in the living room. And by the time I walk back in, I've forgotten.
Yeah,
Ben uses his phone as a timer, and then will occasionally forget.
yeah, it's with the air fryer, you have to put the timer at the beginning. The model I've got and the model my dad's got, I'm not sure if it's with all of them, but it's like, I can't forget, I can't leave it, which is a
It helps.
concern.
It helps having that timer.
It does, because you can go away and then it beeps at you to remind you to sort of squiggle it about or whatever. Or yeah, I do need that. Not all the time, but certainly sometimes I will forget things, or like when I've been silversmithing, I've accidentally left the blowtorch on and stuff. So I don't do that a lot, I'd like to add, but I have done it. So it's like, yes, safety is important, and things with as little flame and moving parts as possible is probably an advantage for me.
Yeah. Boiling water is also a problem for me. One of the few things I still do is make cuppers, but I have on more than one occasion spasmed and ended up with hot coffee all over my hands or feet while trying to avoid ending up with it on a cat, because I'm guaranteed there's one at least at my feet. My mum did, when she started struggling to lift the kettle, she had a cradle when you just tipped it, but I found that really difficult because it hurt different muscles and it was sort of really stiff. These
Uh,
days, she's got a 1 cup, which it like you keep, it's like a coffee machine. You keep it filled, you press go, and then you tell it to stop giving you like boiling water when it's full.
that's kind of like, so we've got the Virgin Pure machine, so it does filtered water, but I have instant access to hot water as well. And it's perfect, so I can just literally go and make a tea without having to wait for a kettle to boil. I don't have to lift anything. I just press the button, take my hand off when I want it to stop, and I'm done.
It's
Yeah.
pretty good, but I don't know if hers is getting a bit old now, but it does like a cup and maybe 3/4. That could be because I don't have milk and she doesn't have a lot. And then it sort of, it thinks about it for a while. And if you're making 3 cups, it really hates that 3rd cup.
Yeah, I find the coffee maker a lot quicker and easier than the kettle, because you sort of lob beans in at the top and you put the water in, it just kind of sorts itself out and it drops the ground into the bottom in a little handy disc. That's much easier than having to faff with, I mean, in fact, we're saying faff with tea, but it,
Yeah.
you know, most people would be like, it's tea, how hard is that? And it's like, well, there's things you
Hard.
wouldn't necessarily think
Oh,
of.
I mean, we used to have a coffee pot, with proper beans and everything. Our problem was cleaning it. This was probably around the time I started getting ill, and
Mm.
so we didn't have it very often, because we just, instant coffee kettle, much easier, sort of, less cleaning, less faffing. But then I'd come to use it, and it'd all need a thorough clean because everything was mouldy. And yeah, eventually it's got no, get rid, kettle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think looking for things that are self-cleaning or easy clean, like with our coffee maker, you need to do a sort of descale on it sort of a couple of times a year or whatever. But other than that, it sort of keeps itself fairly clean.
I
But yeah,
think,
things like coffee grounds can be a nightmare to come back to.
yeah, it was very much, it could have done with a good clean once a week, and that's too much faff.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's just the time it takes, and it's just then it's extra energy you're using up and just, yeah, standing and doing things.
Yeah, I have heard some people have a rolly stool in the kitchen, which is very useful, or they'll bring things into like somewhere else where they can sit down and have a tray, which for chopping and things, I'd imagine is quite useful. I'm still not safe with a knife. But then my husband does most of the cooking. We're one cooked meal a day. I have a protein not shake for breakfast, and everything else is literally pre-prepared because I just can't do it.
I use a lot of prepped vegetables and things. I used to be quite snobby about it, but often you'll get more for your money when it's pre-prepped. So, like, if you buy a bag of chopped peppers, it'll go much further than if you spent the same amount on peppers. And the one I really found was butternut squash. Like, it would take me like 45 minutes to chop up butternut squash. And if you've never tried chopping one, they are a faff and
I
they are
can imagine.
Worst thing to have to chop up and, I mean, it tastes amazing, but
Mm.
it is a nightmare.
Yeah, and it's like I'll pay like 99p extra to have it chopped just to save that faff, because I just can't. And or there's some things like onions or leeks and things. I'm quite particular as to how they're chopped. Like I can't stand like big chunks, and I don't really have the dexterity to do that. So I got to the point where I just went, do you know what? I'm just shoving it in the smoothie maker. I can just have puree, that wouldn't work for everything, but it's so much easier than trying to chop something finely, especially something that will come apart as you chop it. It's a faff.
Frozen leeks of like pre-sliced are actually quite thin,
Mm.
and they're just so easy to add to a meal. So I used to be really against frozen veg. I don't know why.
I've always been against frozen veg, and I don't know why. It doesn't taste the same.
But I do, to make life easier at times, I have a selection of pre-sliced veg and frozen veg in the freezer. So that it's like, yeah, I want to get the bit of veg in, but I don't have the energy or the movement to cut the veg, so I can just literally add it to a pan and I'm done. It does help.
Who thought dexterity was so important?
I know, right?
Any other big issues we have?
I think with the chopping, actually, one thing I found, not an issue, but something that helps is you can get sort of the foamy handles you can put on there, kind of like pool noodles, that sort of helps with grip if it's the grip that's the issue, which, I know it isn't always. And I found, those corners you put on the table so like small children don't hit their heads on them. I can't think what they're called. Sorry, I've just seen the film Coffee Table recently. Horror. Anyway, that's by the by. But yeah, I find those are really good for keeping a chopping board in place, especially one of the thinner ones. So you don't have to hold the chopping board. And I found that makes it a bit easier. But I know there are days when that's not going to do it. It's just do not have the energy.
We stick a tea towel under ours to keep it in place, which I was confused at first until Ben explained why. I cook a lot, can you tell?
Yeah, I'm sure there's sort of official type things that do a similar job that cost an absolute fortune, but
There is.
I think you kind of come up with your own things that work.
If you can find things around the house as well, it just makes it easier instead of having to buy something new and test it out to see if it works, because not everything works for everyone.
Yeah, that, and some things it's the cleaning it that's the pain, like you said. Like there's sort of some gadgets and it's like, yes, it makes it easier, but it's a pain in the neck to clean. And that just puts me off ever using it again, to be honest. Especially, things that come in like loads of different parts and they're
Yeah.
slightly oddly shaped. And
A couple of things come to mind is we used to have some lovely cold brew tea bottles, which were great, apart from the tops were a pain in the arse to make sure they were clean, because it'd all get all stuck and gunked up. So we got rid. But the other one is I used to have a 2-litre bottle with a little liddy bit and a straw, and I found a couple of problems with it. Firstly, for anybody who doesn't know, I keep a 2-litre bottle of juice next to me at all times because I'm always thirsty, and if I don't, I won't drink. But it was shorter and like wider than the bottle, so I needed 2 hands to lift it because I have very small hands. One wouldn't go round. When you flicked it up and the straw came out, despite the fact it's cordial, it would spit it at you, so you'd end up covered in juice. And cleaning that lid, never, from the first time it was used, I never felt it was clean again. And therefore,
anything with an integrated straw or anything like that, I do not trust it, because like this has a straw, but it's, it's a separate straw. You can clean it properly. You can see it's clean. And just the idea of drinking out of something that could have.
Yeah, in my head, it was not clean, therefore I couldn't use it. Ben still uses the one I got for him, takes it to work every day.
Well, I've had that with some water bottles I've got for Dylan, and it's got the straw integrated, and it's like you clean it, and then sometimes I'll just be like, you can just see where it's got like the moisture going in there, and it's like turning colour. And obviously he doesn't pay attention to it with his autism; he doesn't notice the difference on it. So I have to remember to check that. And it was just like, surely that shouldn't be a thing if it's constantly being cleaned. Like, so then I was like, okay, we need to completely change this because it's just, oh no.
Yeah, can't deal with that.
All the things that just.
So I went back to I have a bottle of Pepsi a week, and then I use the bottle for the rest of the week.
Or like things that have just never worked and are impossible to clean, like most protein shake sort of bottle cup things. They don't work, and they've either got the grid on or the ball, and they're a nightmare to clean, and you still end up with powder. So I ended up getting a sort of a portable blender type thing, and I find that washes up the protein shakes enough that they're actually nice. Or, you know, Angel Delight or smoothies or whatever you want to put in it. It's just
I like what I do for Angel Delight. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
and then you can just whoosh it around the soapy water, and you know, it's much easier to clean than. But don't get one of the battery powered ones, because I had one and it was a bit gutless. Like it couldn't cope with the frozen blueberry. It's like, it's too much.
But the smoothies I used to make in the Thermomix had like big chunks of frozen banana in it. If it can't deal with that, it ain't happening. But then I had issue with that as well, because despite the fact those smoothies were absolutely gorgeous, I really enjoyed breakfast at that point. So again, it has to be a liquid breakfast. And it was like full of protein, full of fibre, grand. But it was extremely noisy while it was running, and I couldn't deal with it. I had to leave the room, possibly the house. I've then got to clean it, and that stuff took, despite the fact it's a jug, it still took ages to clean, because I had to clean the lid as well, and I'm picky. And yeah, it was just a lot of faff first thing on a morning when I am not functioning.
Yeah, I used to have like a full-on espresso machine, sort of one of the traditional ones, and it'd take me like 20 odd minutes to get a cup of coffee out of it. And
Why are you going, I just need coffee in my face?
yeah, and it was, you know, it was really nice. It was really good quality and stuff, but I don't have that level of commitment in the morning. And then cleaning everything was a pain. It's, you know, it's sort of like, I really think there should be some sort of review thing with ratings for like, can you actually clean it? Does it take up a ridiculous amount of space? Will it fall over if you breathe on it? You know, stuff
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, it's like all these things we get because it's like, oh, that'd be nice and that'd be a treat. But you then got to think around it, like, do I have to clean it? Can it be cleaned properly? Am I going to hate it? Is it going to take up a lot of space? Is it going to be noisy? And sort of, as I've got more ill, these things bother me a lot more, because it's not something I can just deal with it, because I can't.
So it's time for some spoons full of loveliness. Here's lots of lovely things from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Liz Drury, and you probably recognise my voice, as I'm the voiceover artist behind the 3Spoonies podcast adverts. If you're curious about the other services I offer, pop over to my website, lizdrury.com, where you can find out how I could help you with things like voiceover for videos, narration for online courses, announcements for events, voicemail greetings and on-hold messages, audio tours for museums, and more. That's lizdrury.com.
Welcome back. We are talking about cooking when you're disabled. Do we want to talk about desserts, or should we see if we've got any top tips?
I mean, we all like desserts.
We do all like desserts, yes.
But I used to love baking and making any kind of dessert, to be fair. It's just now too much effort and too much energy. And it hurts a lot.
Yeah,
And then
especially
just
when
like,
you've got to mix things.
yeah. Like we used to do, I mean, like years and years ago, I had my own cake business, so it was like a daily thing. But then me and Dylan will still occasionally make like cookies or brownies, something like that. And typical child, he'll start off doing it and be like, you can carry on now. Once he's done the easy part of weighing it and putting it all in a bowl, the rest is for me. Because he's like, he'll sit there and start mixing it. He'll be like, there you go.
It's
But
hard
then I
for me.
my arms don't want to work. My upper body strength has disappeared.
Yeah, again, I have to do things like that in batches. And if I'm making stuff up, I try and make a big batch. So, like, if I'm making some cookie dough, I'll sort of make a few batches worth. So then if I ever do want to make them, I just need to sort of defrost or slice or cook or whatever and not have to do it all in one go, especially things that need like icing as well, because like a lot of cakes will freeze quite well. So I'll sort of make a big batch, freeze them, and then there's the option to ice them later or just nom them for a quick snack or whatever. I couldn't do like the full process. Like I used to do multiple times a week because we'd meet up for gaming like 3 times a week, and I bake most times. And now it's like that's got to be on a day when I've actually got some energy.
The energy.
Yeah.
I used to really enjoy baking. It always looked shit, but it tasted good, and that was the important bit. And I even had a cupboard full of baking supplies. And during our recent declutter, we got rid of everything because I haven't touched it in years. But I used to really enjoy it, and just like the house smelling of bacon is always good.
Especially like bread or like something that kind of based. The smell of bread is amazing.
But also, in my mind's eye, Karen has a big chest full of food.
Yes, I do. It's currently very full of food because I've been making cake pops for the Scouts pantomime. And yeah, I've got one of those cake pop makers, like the like waffle iron type things. So you can sort of cook the balls of cake, which means I don't have to turn the oven on. I can do it on pretty much any surface, which works out well actually because these are gluten free as well. So I can keep everything separate from gluten-y stuff. Yeah, that's quite good because it's fairly quick. And I find that works for me as well. If sometimes you just want a bit of cake, you can defrost like a cake pop or a couple, and it feels like a nice treat without it being effort because you've already done the effort bit. It's like, well done, pass me.
That's another thing. Like things like cake pop makers, waffle irons, toasty makers. They all seem like a really good idea real quick, and then you've got to clean them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth paying a bit extra for ones that actually are cleanable. It's like we had a toasty maker at one point that looked hilarious. It was shaped like a cow and it moved when it was ready.
Oh, I love that.
It was a nightmare to clean. You basically had to unscrew it every time you wanted to properly clean it because there were like spaces around the edge where cheese would drip down and stuff. And you had to
That would get used once. And
take
only
it
once.
completely apart. And it was like, no. Or things like we had a chocolate. Do you remember when chocolate fountains were a thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that was such a pain to clean. And it's like, do you know what? I do not get enough joy out of this to justify the faff of it. It's just no. That, and how many occasions are there when you need a chocolate fountain?
Depends what you do, but yeah, there isn't. I mean, things like seen like ceramic dishes full of cheese you can shove in the oven and you get melty, gooey fondue type cheese, and then you just get some bread, and it's all so easy and tasty and full of cheese.
Well, there are actually some good things that are designed for kids that are sort of a bit safer, which probably wasn't originally the idea. It's like one thing I've got is there's an actual chocolate fondue pot, which I mostly use to keep certain chemicals boiling for silversmithing, which sounds far less legitimate than it is, I promise you. But there's also a thing, it's a chocolate melter. It's basically like if you imagine a squashed beanbag crossed with a hot water bottle. So you put boiling water into it, screw it, and then you sort of use the bowl bit to melt chocolate in. So you don't have to directly touch the hot thing. You don't have to worry about steam, and it doesn't take up a massive amount of room. And if you do a lot of stuff with melted chocolate, or you could make something look fancy, like if it came to it, you could get a shop bought cake and drizzle some chocolate on it or something. Do you know what I mean? It would look like you've put a bit of effort into it. And yeah, some of those things are just sort of a safer option and alternative. Although some of them, like those easy bake ovens, are like nightmare to clean. You'll probably electrocute yourself. Like some of those things, like a little thing that claims to cook something, I'm like, not sure. But something that's going to melt chocolate, you can see if it's melted or not, really, can't you? So that's
Yeah. Have you come across any other things that make life easier as a disabled cook?
I suppose it would kind of work with you talking about like chopping things and stuff, like with your hand spasms. So at Dylan's college, so that the kids can be help out with the cooking, and they do cooking once a week. They've got these gloves that if you accidentally cut on them, it won't cut through the glove, so it protects your fingers.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
They are pretty cool. So I don't, I should use them because I'm forever cutting my fingers or almost dropping a knife on my feet. But Dylan uses them when he helps me cut veg and stuff. So it's kind of like full protection for him.
like gauntleting type things.
Yes, they are like gauntlet gloves. That's what I always think of. But yeah, it protects your fingers from accidentally being chopped off. I should use it more myself, but I like to live on the edge. To be fair, in my head, I'm just like, oh, it's just one more thing that I've got to do when I don't have time to do it. So I'm just like, no, get it done. And then I rush and end up accidentally cutting a finger or dropping a knife. And the worst thing is I'll go in the kitchen barefoot, so then I'm like, oh, my toes.
You don't need them all.
It's just, yeah.
I find one thing that's useful is that I use my Remarkable quite a lot, as you may know, or you may not. It doesn't really matter if you do, I suppose. But I have recipes on that and sort of as PDFs. But you can then sort of write on them and make little notes or reminders. Like, sometimes it's an American recipe and you can write, this is so however many grams, rather than like a generous 2/3 of a cup, or change the temperatures, or sort of circle bits that you might forget. Because, sometimes if it's something you've not made for or not made for a while and you're looking at a whole page of instructions, like it's a lot. So if you can just sort of take the key bits, it's easier to follow without using up quite so much brain power.
It is good. I mean, that is one thing I did like about the Thermomix. It had a bunch of recipes, and you just
Mm.
followed the instructions. The problem was finding the one you wanted first. I always found until you'd saved it for your favourites. That was a pain in the bum. But yeah, when we first got that, like Ben made all sorts of new dishes that we could try, and we decided what we liked. Most of them were very, very fatty, so we don't use that anymore. It's now a glorified rice cooker.
Which, considering how much they cost, is
Yeah.
like, and you pay subscription for that recipe app as well, don't you? It's like,
Yeah, we won't be renewing that one because we've stopped using it. And it's, I mean, it's 30 quid a year, and it was useful
still
to
low.
start with, but we don't use it anymore. And when it does die, we'll be replacing it with just a rice cooker. 'Cause the idea was nice to start with, like it does so much more. But it doesn't get used for that.
Yeah, I'd have to say a rice cooker is useful, especially if, you have issues with sort of lifting pans or being able to stir or remember things. Yeah, the rice cookers just do what
Yeah.
they're supposed to, and you can cook various other things in them, or, yeah, they're
Yeah.
pretty good. What was I going
And
to say?
slow cooker for the win, by the way.
Yeah.
It is until you have to lift it out to clean it, and then I'm like, oh, I'm just like,
Well,
no, the
see,
arms don't want to work.
we use ours every week because every week we have chili, and it's Ben first thing on the morning on a Saturday will put it in and just let it go because then the shopping arrives and everything. My problem comes Sunday when he's taken it out because it's a decent sized one because I used to have a little one for a one person one, and he's put it to soak in this kitchen sink. It's like, well, now I can't use the sink because I can't lift that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love my slow cooker though. It's
Well, I do. I use mine a lot, and even like for making like chicken stock and stuff, and just kind of prepping all that. I absolutely love it. And to be fair, I should make space for it on the kitchen side because it stays in the cupboard and we get it out probably like once or twice a week.
But yeah, that
Yeah.
should definitely stay out.
Yeah, no, I need to leave that out, to be fair. But tangents now. Tangents, brain's gone. But yeah, I love it to pieces, and I'm just like, I just wish it would be a bit easier to lift out and clean.
Yeah, that is fair. 'Cause, you put everything in, it does the cooking. When you're knackered later on, there's food.
Oh, it's
yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, and also the Supercook website, you can put in individual ingredients and it'll come up with recipes for you. So if you've got stuff that needs using up or you want to try something else, that's quite good for that. Or, if sometimes you've just got into a bit of a rut, because I know for you, Joe, it works really well having the same things every week, that
I
would,
mean, I get
yeah,
bored of soup and bread twice a week, but
Yeah, but I like to vary things up every now and then. I mean, I will have like random bits left in the fridge, and I'll just go to Google and be like, what can I make with this? If I can't think of any for myself, I'm like, what can I make? Help me. My brain
yeah,
doesn't want a brain.
I used to get, the recipe kits where they send you all the ingredients, but the problem is,
Yeah.
they usually don't last very long, so that means you have to cook dinner 4 nights in a row, and I can't guarantee I can do that. So there's potentially a lot of waste there. I switched to a different one, which at first I was like, that sounds ridiculous. What's the point? But they send you a kit with like spice blends and
Yeah,
marinades
what
and
one?
things and the recipe cards. And that works better because obviously there's some sort of best before date on it, but it isn't like I need to cook 4 meals this week. You can kind of spread it out So I get like one a month with 4 in, and I can cook sort of one thing a week is probably realistic most of the time. And also you can choose things like for various dietary needs. And they also suggest substitutions as well. So it's like, if you want to make this veggie, you could swap this for this. Obviously, if there's not meat products in the sauce or whatever. So they're sort of quite good at suggesting alternatives. But I found that I tried things I probably wouldn't have otherwise. And, some I absolutely love. Others, it's like, I could take it or leave it. But yeah, if you do find you're in a rut, and also, sometimes it's like that thing that adulting is having to decide what you want for dinner every day for the rest of your life. Sometimes it's just like, I don't know what I want.
I see the TISM definitely helps with that because we know what day it is, we know what we're having. And if we're bored, we get takeout, or we'll switch up a day and have something a different day. Like last night, because we're going out for dinner tonight, last night should have been soup and garlic bread. But because we're going out for dinner tonight, last night was sausage sandwich night. And that is us switching it up because we buy exactly what we need for the week and that's what we use.
Yeah, I find I need to plan. Like, if I just bought a load of random things, then there'd probably be waste because things just wouldn't get used. I need to know sort of what I'm cooking, not necessarily on every single day, but I have to sort of have it done in advance. Or sometimes if I'm feeling really energetic, I'll go to the local market and you can get some absolute bargains, and I'll sort of pre-prep a load of fruit and veg. So then most of it will get frozen. So it's like, okay, what can I combine for this?
So at least,
Or,
like, if you've got all this frozen in your freezer, you can at least look at your freezer going, what do I fancy? What? Right.
yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes the tricky bit's done. I do love fresh herbs, but the chances of us getting through enough of it in time is really slim. So I'll always sort of chop up the extra and then have it frozen. But it does, I find, really elevate what you're cooking. And you've already put in the effort of chopping it so it's there. Or you can get some frozen chopped herbs as well, ready done. And I do just find it so much nicer. And it's one of those things, if you've never tried it, you go, surely it doesn't make that much difference. It's like when someone said, oh, real vanilla is so much better than vanilla essence. And I'm like, I'm sure it's not. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So sometimes sort of those extra nice ingredients can perk it up. Or if there's a sauce or a condiment or something you like, that if you can only make something simple, if it can at least taste nice, it just helps it to be less boring. And I can't be doing with being bored with food. It's like, if it's not interesting, then
Yeah, if it's boring, I hate eating it. I mean, on top of the issues of textures.
oh yeah, like you could not pay me enough money to eat a raw tomato. I just can't. And
No, thanks, can't either.
I can. I'll eat them for
I
you.
can, especially eggs. I definitely have an issue with eggs. But randomly, because I like eggs, but every so often my body just go, no, you don't want this. I was like, oh, well, I was enjoying that. But
That's the
anyway,
thing.
I digress. Do you have any final thoughts on cooking when you're disabled?
Not some kind of thoughts, but just remember to meal if you can, if you've got the energy and you can meal prep. Karen's idea last Christmas of starting the veg early and writing it on little bags. I stole it. I used it, and it was so much easier at Christmas cooking. I will be doing it again this year. Even at Easter when it's like we do like a roast and stuff like that. I planned it early, and it was like, okay, pre-prepare this, freeze it, write on the bag because otherwise I will forget as well. But yeah, the little things that can just help you make such a difference.
Even Ben last Christmas started prepping Christmas Eve, and then literally every couple of hours on Christmas Day, he'd do a thing until it was ready. And he
Yeah,
said that made it so much easier.
yeah. This Christmas just gone was my easiest Christmas of cooking, and I got to spend so much more time just being present instead of all day in the kitchen, which was so nice.
I mean, it probably helped that he didn't kill the cooker this year.
That'll help.
Well, Mum's cooker, he killed ours just before we left. But yeah, sorry. I'm tangenting. Karen?
I think the main thing is just be kind to yourself. Like, remember the Delia thing that if you can't make your own shop bought is fine, which explains a lot of my meds. But to be fair, it's okay if you buy something that's chopped or pre-prepped. You're not cheating. You're just taking away the bit you can't do, and it's fine. And if you've got particular dietary needs as well, you can find that things can become maybe a bit repetitive or boring. Look, as I said, look for some spices or something that can perk the taste up a bit. And, if you do need to take vitamin supplements and things, again, that's fine. And it's better to do that and be aware of that than to miss out. And I know some people are like, oh, it's unnatural. And it's like, well, do you know what? Most of the meds I'm on are unnatural, but they allow
And
me
for
to
most of
function.
the things
So,
we do in life.
yeah, if I'm having some electrolyte powders to stop me getting a migraine and I get tasty magnesium, that works for me, and some people say, oh, well, you could eat a certain number of this nut a day and da. And it's like, yeah, I could, but am I going to? And if you're not going to, that and having snacky bits to hand for, when you really just can't, like, I've got a jar of sort of dried fruit and mixed nuts and things. So when I just don't have the energy to think or do something, I can eat that, and at least I'm getting some sort of nutrition. And, is it as good as eating fresh fruit and stuff? Not necessarily, but am I still getting some sort of vitamins and consuming something, and also something that's easy to eat? If you have stomach troubles sometimes or you don't have a lot of an appetite, knowing that you've eaten that thing that's going to be a positive for you is something, rather than maybe grabbing handfuls of cereal or something, which again can be fine. But depending on the cereal, you might not be getting that much out of it. But again, grabbing a handful of cereal is better than not having eaten in the past X number of hours.
Yeah, so do what works for you. Don't feel ashamed about it.
And
I
if
think
Cheffy would just like to add, thank you,
feel
Cheffy.
I think
the
Joe
need
looks a bit
for
traumatised there.
And I shall. So thank you, Cheffy, for joining us today. And thank you to all of you for joining us for 3Spoonies on Cooking When Disabled. We'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, particularly if you've got any good tips. And don't forget to subscribe for our weekly podcast. You can also leave us a lovely review. You know you want to. You can also buy us a coffee if you like what we do, or a bubble tea. Today's is honeydew, which, as we learned from Bojack, is actually quite tasty, and passion fruit, just in case you were wondering. Links, as ever, will be in the show notes, and we might put up a few of handy things we have found. But we're not getting commission from any of them or anything. It's just things that we've tried out that have genuinely helped. So we'll see you next week for our community questions. Have a great day, and keep track of your spoons.